Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. I am so excited to have LaShawn Davis as our guest on Your Brand Amplified today. I'm your host, Annika Jackson. LaShawn, thank you so much for taking some time with us.
Thank you for having me here.
Of course. And you are an Atlanta-based DE&I expert. You have many acronyms behind your name, and you're the founder and CEO of the HR Plug. Please tell us all about HR. How did you get into HR? How did this become your dream job?
I actually stumbled into HR because I've always been vocal growing up. In my neighborhood, when you know somebody that's really good at something or can get something, you refer to them as the plug. And so, I was always that kid that was like, nah, don't let them take advantage of you. Here's what you do. And then I just started researching like what rights you have when you feel like you're being taken advantage of. And then I seemingly had all the answers. So all of my friends and then their friends and then their friends' friends all started calling me the plug, like, oh, you have a workplace issue. That's the HR plug over there. And so then I realized that as I got older and I grew in corporate America, that there's a lack of access and a lack of knowledge and a lack of awareness that are out there, especially for people of color, especially for people who don't benefit from privilege like others do, who may not come from houses that have corporate backgrounds and things like that. So I made it my business to support, empower, and advocate for employees in the workplace and help organizations understand what they need to do better to take care of the people that keep their businesses going. And so that's kind of how I stumbled into this. And I've worked, in HR all of my professional life.
Amazing. Now, you were the HR plug in your neighborhood before you became officially, but did you work in corporate before you went off on your own?
I did. I worked in corporate for over 15 years, and primarily I worked in employee relations and labor relations, all people who have issues or problems with management or their leaders. And I helped navigate, through those challenges. And then I learned that companies will hire you as an employee and then decide whether or not they want to listen to you versus if you do it as a consultant, they're invested in this. And that means they have a drive and a willingness to want to do the right thing. And that's where I then segued into, because I was tired of trying to advocate for the right thing, but companies only being concerned with money or making profit. So now with my company, I teach them how to do both, how to take care of your teams and still be a profitable business or brand. And I'm just now loving my space and supporting those companies and people or leaders who want it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, kudos to the companies that are reaching out and using you as a resource. This is something I'm seeing a lot of, especially recently. Obviously, during the pandemic, a lot of work changed, the way we work changed, a lot of social issues that people had been kind of putting blinders on came out, and we were mostly sitting at home and had to choose, right? What side are we going to be on? Are we going to be on the right side and address these issues and acknowledge what's going on in society and all of the systemic racism, all the other things that are going on? And so then we start seeing more people, more companies talk about their employee groups and this and that and put DE&I on their websites. But there's still, I feel like, a big disconnect, because I teach college students and I've had students say, I did an internship XYZ. I'm a gay Latino male. I'm treated differently than, my blonde white counterpart who is also an intern at the same company. I'm being put through more hoops, or I see the same thing happening with people that have worked with me before going into what they think is their dream job. And then they said, yeah, they're a B Corp. They have all these initiatives that they talk about on their website, but then getting in there and feeling tokenized because the values of the organization don't line up with the values they're espousing. So how do you help? Because this is huge. This is a huge issue, and you're not going to have a lack of work at all. But
right.
Yeah. How do you help people solve these issues or figure out that they're saying one thing, but that the way that they're acting is not the same?
Well, first it starts with mindset. And I know that's like the cliche word that everybody's using right now. But what I've learned is when we work for corporate America or when we're going to apply for a job, we're going into it with the mindset that we need them. I need this job. I got bills to pay. And so we tend to sacrifice or compromise our values or our morals egos or our feelings or our boundaries for the sake of, I need this check. The first step is acknowledging or owning the company needs you. You bring something different. You bring something great because you are great. And once you can harness that and make yourself indispensable, that's when you garner the respect from the organization that should be by default, but unfortunately it's not. So what I do is I help employees understand where their greatness lies. I help them understand how to find what their purpose is, because when you're operating in your purpose, you're going to stand out, you're going to be unique, you're going to be indispensable, and the company is going to need you more than you need them. That then is when you can showcase your talents and skills that will be appreciated and respected. But a lot of times we've settled. We've settled because it's a Fortune 100 company, or we've settled because this is the most money that I've ever made in my life. We're settled because I'm afraid to say anything because I don't want to jeopardize losing making the most money that I've ever had. But once we step into our shoes to know you don't have to settle, because once you own who you are and showcase that to them, they're going to be not wanting to lose you. And that's the mindset I try to get employees and employers. I try to get them in the mindset to understand there are certain laws and there are certain rights that employees have. We've seen it with Starbucks. We've seen it with Amazon. Your whole business can get shut down based on devaluing the employee. And like you said, because of COVID, the value of life means something different today. You treating me like a human being means something different today. And unless companies recognize how to listen and value and respect and appreciate their employees to gain commitment from them, they will forever be going through a cycle of turnover, a cycle of business interruptions or disruptions, or having to deal with labor unions.
Yeah. That's a lot.
So we try to get them to understand it's a relationship. It's not a dictatorship. It's a relationship. You need your employees just as much as they need you. And once you learn how to leverage the strengths of each other and work well together, then you'll achieve their happiness and your business success. So those are the types of things that we work with both individuals on in accomplishing.
I'm like thinking, I need to have you come speak to my branding and PR class, because that is one of the things that I realized I had to do with them, is help them figure out who they are, what their brand is, so they can use their voices when they're going out and looking for jobs, whether they decide to stay in PR or do something else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You are a brand. You are a business. And how you carry yourself determines the work that they'll want to do with you. Yeah. So that is absolutely on point.
Yeah. So how do people come to you? Because you work with both employees who are saying, I need help, and you work with employers on the other side.
So what I've learned is that it's a cycle, right? So employees will not feel good about the way their managers treat them if managers don't feel supported by how HR supports them. And then HR doesn't feel like they have a seat at the table in the organization. It's a cycle. And I realize that it's so hard to help employees advocate for themselves if I say, go to HR, and HR is like, they're not going to care, or, they don't even know what to do or what to handle it, or the organization is so blinded by greed or by profit that they dismiss the need of the employee. And so what I've learned is I start with HR professionals first, because they are the gatekeepers of culture. And if they begin functioning in the role like it was designed to, which is not how we're functioning today, then it will start teetering out to level out more balance. But right now, we have, unfortunately, HR professionals who are tired, burnt out, undervalued, underappreciated, all because of what happened during COVID and having to navigate through all of this. Nobody took care of them. Yeah. And so they're leaving the industry, which is in turn leaving employees to have to fend for themselves. And that's one thing that I'm really trying to change. So I'm doing a lot with the HR populations to help them understand what their role should be in the organization as the gatekeeper of culture. You cannot want to be liked in HR. You have to be okay with saying no. You have to be okay with advocating for the person that needs the advocating for. You have to be okay with telling an employee no. Like, you cannot want to be favored so much by leadership and think about your own trajectory that you forget about the purpose or the reason why you're established to begin with. And so that's what I'm working to do, help reignite, help replenish the depleted, the tired, the burnt out HR professional as a start.
Wow. What are some of the ways that you do that?
One of the ways is I have an HR community that they're HR newbies. So if you're new to HR, you're under 2 years in the industry, you can join this free community and you have a way to ask questions and leverage other people who might be going through the same thing that you are. There are a lot of HR departments of one out there that I learned and they're trying to figure it out on their own. So we created this community. And then I do an annual conference called Unplug. And it's an HR business conference where HR professionals literally unplug and disconnect from the day-to-day that they're experiencing at work and come to this event to get refueled and refilled and recharged so that they understand how to take care of themselves. Because what's happening is they're tired and they're not taking care of themselves, which then makes it impossible for them to take care of anybody else. And so this is their recharge, their refuel to get back, come together and learn about self-care, wellness for them, and then understand like what's going on in the labor environment now that we might need to adjust or shift or change to be more of what's needed in the business world. And so empowering HR professionals, building confidence, building the community, letting them know you're not in this alone. There are resources available for you is where, I'm really starting with them. This is the second year we're doing the conference this year and it's growing. So therefore it's a need. So I'm excited about, this and excited to reignite HR professionals because LinkedIn just did a study that it's the top industry where over 15% of people have not returned since last year.
Yeah, I believe it. It's just like nursing. When you're having to take care of other people and other people's issues all day long.
Yes. And no one's taking care of you. Exactly. No one's asking, how are you doing? Yeah. What can I do to help you? It gets draining.
Yeah. Well, I love these resources that you have. I think these are really important, especially to create and cultivate that pipeline of future HR professionals. You're helping them cultivate community, feel supported, and then also giving them the skill sets to know how to navigate from the right perspective, right? Bringing in values of DE&I and making sure, how are you onboarding new employees? How are you
experience?
All of that stuff. Yeah.
All of that. Correct. We're not checklists and spreadsheets and, reporting. That's only a piece of your job, right? We're not just people pushers or policy drivers to get the business what they want. That's not our job either. So it's reteaching because even the schools, like I have a master's in HR and I didn't learn anything that I need to do to be prepared today to deal with HR. And so I'm trying to, support those who really have a heart for this industry, not topple or drown while they're trying to support other people.
Yeah. So when did you make your transition from the world of corporate into your own business?
It's been about a little over a year now where I really made the official, disconnect, because at first the HR plug wasn't necessarily a business versus advice. Like you have a question, hey, I'm here, what do you need, whatever. And then it really turned into like, I can really do this full time. I'm going to really help companies who need it, because what I was finding was HR professionals didn't know what to do. And the world of workplace culture is a new thing. It's nothing that existed before. We're coming from a time where people felt like loyalty and being on a job for 10 to 15 years was something to be proud about. And that was, I've been here 15 years. I'm so excited. Where now it doesn't even matter. Like you're okay if you're only at a job for 2 years because job hopping is a trend. And HR professionals are clueless in some areas with how do I deal with this when the older leaders or the generational differences and gaps are creating this lack of forward or progression for our company. They didn't know what to do. And so I've kind of reinvented this space in a sense of, calling myself a workplace culturologist, because there isn't anybody else out there who's really doing it outside of notating there's an issue, but not how do we fix it and what do we do? Right. So that's what I'm excited about and hoping to gain more leverage and put more awareness out there that something needs to be done. And if I'm the lonely person starting this journey, I am ready and prepared because this is where my passion and purpose lies.
Yes. And I could see this might be getting ahead of things, but are you creating the certification process? Because I could see you doing that.
It's so funny. Yes, I was actually exploring a workplace culture certification because people need to know how to assess. How do I know the red flags? Because right now we're living in a reactive space where, oh my goodness, everybody's walked out the job. What do we do? Where I want to get us to a more proactive space where we recognize there is a disengagement factor factor here.
Mm-hmm.
Here's why we know that, because of what this HR data metric has shown us. Let's get ahead of this before we have the disruption. And so it's so funny you said that. Like 2 weeks ago, somebody else asked me, do I have like some kind of a certificate or certification for workplace culture, because they want to understand how I do what I do. So that is something I'm going to explore. I'm going to research it and figure it out, because I think it will do very well.
Yeah. And I think it takes it a step further than you can get a DE&I certification. There are different programs for that. But the problem you're solving is the step beyond that, right?
Yes.
So it's one thing to understand the issues, but it's another thing to actually create that cultural shift and that change.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge. And that's why I want to teach and train other HR professionals how to do it, because I cannot do it alone. And we have to speak, though, in a way that business understands it. They need to see it in numbers and metrics and results, deficits, savings, cost, And so all of that ties together, but just it's not well known how to do it. So I appreciate that, because I'm going to explore how to go about doing that, because that's definitely a perfect next step.
Yeah. Well, and you've made the shift. You've seen it firsthand yourself of moving from corporate for 15 years into your own business and making it a full business, not just, the person everybody comes to get free advice. So what are some of the things that you've seen in the shift? Do you see people still want to be in the corporate environment? Do you see people still wanting to work for others? Or, are you also working a lot with entrepreneurs or small businesses, for instance, who I will be the first to admit, when I started my business, I had no idea about all the different rules and regulations surrounding the hiring process in different states, or having employees, contractor, and then how do you create culture, especially in a virtual world?
Absolutely. So startups and entrepreneurs, those are my favorite people, because they have a clean slate and they can start correct, right? And to your point, starting off right is important. You have to know the difference between a 1099 contractor versus an employee. You have to know, if you're hiring them virtually, what are the laws of that state, because it's different. And if you don't hire the expert to help you navigate through that and help you be proactive in a sense, so that you can establish a healthy culture as opposed to trying to fix one, then you're off to a great start. And so what I'm in the process of doing is creating like guides and cheat sheets and checklists and things like that for those groups, because a lot of times, they cannot afford HR professionals to hire them full time and things like that. But there are other companies out there who give HR a bad rep to say, we can be your HR person for you. You can outsource your HR to us. We can do all of your HR things. And that's the number one biggest mistake you can make. There are certain parts of HR that can be outsourced, like payroll or things that are more transactional. But when it comes to the actual culture, you need somebody internal to your organization that's going to be the face to your employees, because you don't know what that third party is going to say, how they're going to represent you. And they don't know your culture or what you all value in the relationship with your employees. And so I'm trying to also caution them that, hey, HR is not a one-size-fits-all approach. You're going to get so much more from your team when you get to know your team. And that's going to require them engaging with someone who's not just a client of yours, but who's a part of the company with you. So those are some of the things that I try to work with entrepreneurs and those startup businesses to get them to understand where they can outsource, where they can save costs, and where they can find resources for free. And then I also work with established organizations who realize, we screwed up. I don't know what we're going to do now. Everybody mad. They're complaining about this person. I don't know how to investigate this properly. People are threatening to sue. We are also your risk mitigators. My company can come in. We can engage with your workforce and tell you what's wrong and tell you how to fix it and tell you, how to rebuild and regain trust with your team. And that's something that we also pride ourselves in doing, because we love a company that recognizes they made a mistake and they have a willingness to fix it. And then, employees, we do assessments with them as leaders or as employees to help you understand where your strengths are, so that you know how to leverage them, how to be in a role, in a position that brings you joy and not just that brings you, grief, and positioning yourself in the right place, because that happens a lot. Some of us have been in the same role for years and years and years, and it's all we know, but it was never what we were meant to do. And so, finding out your sweet spot, where you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to be doing, where your passions lie, help bring you joy, help bring you fulfillment to thrive at work. So we also help assess, where are you working, how much do you love it, and how much is it that you're not supposed to be there, and reposition you with your 20 years experience, transferring some of these skills and getting you into a place where you're supposed to be. So those are some of the services that we can do.
Oh, yeah. That resonates so deeply with me because I have a very all over the place career, a few years off when I had my daughter, the whole thing. And it can be really daunting and difficult to get into the workforce again, or to find that company that's going to value all of the things that you bring to the table just because you haven't had that linear career. And I know one of the things you also focus a lot on, of course, is diversity and professionals of color really advocating for themselves. So is this where the additional mindset work comes in?
This is a lot of where the mindset work is, especially when, from my personal experience, there's a generational gap. I was raised by my grandmother. And so, my upbringing was always graduate high school and get a government job and you'll be fine. I was never taught how to negotiate a salary. I was never taught what question that I can even ask questions at an interview. Right. I was taught, be grateful for the opportunity. And that mindset of gratefulness and I need to make sure I'm on my best behavior so that I don't lose this has stifled us because other races know how to go in and get what they know they deserve. And the people of color world or in the African American community, we're so caught up on loss. I don't want to lose this salary. What if they say no? I'm not going to challenge or question anything. I'll just suck it up and deal with it. Yeah. And especially women, where we always feel we have to show our proof or show our value instead of other races who can get it just because of what they look like. You don't have to show your value. You can do the same exact thing they do. We've just never been taught how.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what I spend a lot of time teaching them how to do it, what you say, how you ask, why you ask that way. And it gets a little discouraging sometimes, if I can be honest, because my ideal client is the client that's ready to change their mindset, because I engage with a lot of people, particularly like on social media, where I'll say, hey, here's how you ask this question, or here's how you answer this question. And, people are like, oh, that's too long. I'm not saying all that. Or I'm just going to tell them I didn't like my last job. All the things that no other race would do or no other people would do because we're just being honest. But we have to understand how to be corporate savvy. We have to understand how to deliver that truth the right way and the right time, right? To avoid bias and stereotypes and microaggressions. And some people just are not there with that mindset yet, which lets me know I still have a lot of work to do.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm glad, that you're raising awareness and allowing people like me to have a space and a voice to get it out there to say, if we don't value ourselves, why would anybody else value us?
Exactly.
If we don't see that you're worthy of being able to ask a question or to get what you deserve, if you're not going to ask for it, why would somebody give it to you? Because you work hard and show them that you're worth it. It doesn't work that way in corporate America. And that's what I'm trying to teach our people.
Yeah, I'm just thinking because my mom is an immigrant, came over here for college, ended up staying. But there were a lot of things that I didn't grow up learning either because she didn't have the experience of living here and knowing what questions do you ask or how do you do this? How do you do that? Because her experience was completely different in Asia than here. So I think what you're doing has value for so many different demographics and so many audiences, especially when we see this new normal and people trying to figure out, like, are they going to go back to working physically somewhere full time? Can they do hybrid? Do they want to just work from home? And realizing that we want to be able to do things like go pick up our kids from school and not feel like we're going to be punished, right? In the middle of the day.
Right.
Because, like where I live, there's no school bus that's going to bring her home. We don't live close enough to the school where I can have her walk home. So, everything that you say really just resonates with me so strongly.
Yes. Because we know how to do our jobs and get it done. And that should be all that matters.
Yes.
And a lot of people want to remain hybrid or want to remain working from home because COVID has taught us it can be done and I can still do my job. So why do I need to be in the office if as an employee, I value my time and not commuting, or I value my time with my family where I'm able to multitask? And a lot of companies argue it's for camaraderie, engagement with one another and this and this and this and that. But I always push back and I say, before you judge why someone doesn't want to come back to the workplace, what is your workplace culture like? Is it the way that what you're fostering that makes me feel safer at home so I don't have to explain myself or work harder? I get to finally relax and work the same as everybody else because there's no magnifying glass on me and you're not wondering about my hair or you're not wondering, about all these different things. Examine your cultures. And really, is it an ego thing? Like, because I say it's time to be back, it's time to be back, or is it a business need? Really, truly evaluate that and discover what's important to your team and make it work, because that's what's going to be necessary for what the future of work is requiring for us today.
Yeah. Well, and thinking about how every state has so many different regulations, laws around employees and what you can do or what you can't do. Yeah. Do you work with people all over the United States? Yeah. So you have to know You have to know
California
everything.
and New York. California and New York are probably the most employee-friendly states out there with the most regulations and the most guidelines and protections for employees. And I see a lot of, especially newer entrepreneurs or newer, leaders getting in trouble by just lack of awareness of what the laws are, or they know what the laws are and they're not familiar with what retaliation is, about the law. And the reason why I've realized it is because when I'm an entrepreneur, I'm passionate about my business and I want everybody I hire to be just as passionate as I am. And when you're not, I get mad because you're not taking care of my baby the way that I want you to take care of my baby. And it never happens that way. No one's ever going to be as passionate about your business as you are. And so until you learn how to navigate through that and how to trust your team to do what you hire them to do and celebrate that, you're going to continue to experience these types of challenges because of the varying laws that are in different states. But how it's equal, as humans, we're going to get frustrated, So no two states are really created equal here, especially if you live in New York or California. You definitely want to take partners for sure, because it's very easy to get in trouble.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm raising my hand at that because I'm based in California, and during the pandemic, I was like, I can have employees in 5 states. That's not a problem. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is not what I thought it was going to be, because I didn't have the right HR person helping me. And so just going to plug you for everybody listening. LaShawn knows her stuff. You should definitely reach out to her. I also wanted to know, you have over 77,000. It's probably even higher because that was, a few months ago, TikTok followers that you reach out to. So tell me about that, because a lot of times people pick like one platform or another to talk about their expertise and really grow that platform. So how did you start your TikTok?
Well, TikTok is a completely different audience than Instagram, which is a completely different audience than LinkedIn.
Yes.
And, my business tailors to all three. And so what I had to learn is the type of content that each one likes. And what I've learned is that TikTok, the audience on there, they really just want to know what to say and what to do. And so what I've learned was a lot of HR professionals will say, for example, when they ask you, tell you about yourself, you want to be honest, you want to make it relatable to the organization, you want to do these things X, Y, and Z. Or when you write your resume, you want to make sure, it looks this way and this and that. But that's not what they're looking for. What they wanted was to hear, when they ask you, tell me about yourself, this is what you should say. Hi, my name is LaShawn, and da, 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 da. Like, they want to hear you say it. They want to see it in action so that they can get it and understand it. They want to see templates of resumes, or they want you to just be transparent and blunt. What do I need to take off? And that's really how I got my hit on TikTok, because I did a video and I said, if you have any of these things on your resume, just take them off right now. Like, I'm talking to you. It wasn't even like any lights, makeup. I mean, I probably was mad at reading a resume that had all the stuff on there. And I just went on there to vent, honestly. And that was my first viral video. And I was like, take off your address, only put the city and state you live in. No one needs to know your address anymore. No one's sending you mail. I just kind of went on. And then I said, the year you graduated high school, nobody cares. Take it off. Like, you're aging yourself. People can calculate your age, and so I just kind of did that, and people loved it. And so what I learned is that they don't want to hear corporate lingo. They don't want to hear the politically correct. They just want somebody to talk to them and help them, like you care about their well-being and success. And that's what I do to my TikTok audience.
Nice. Love that. So I know you have a conference coming up, the second annual Unplugged Business Conference in Atlanta. What else is on your upcoming radar?
Yep. So we have this conference coming up in March for, in a few weeks. Wow, it's already March. And, excited about that, to just come out and teach, train, educate, and empower. Also, I'm launching a mentorship. I don't believe in coaching, because I think coaching is more for skill sets and mentorship is more for personal development. Okay. And I'm committed to working one-on-one with individuals personally on their professional development. And so I'm going to be launching something called the Greatness Lab. And it's where we go in and we help you discover greatness that you already have. I don't like when people say greatness is within you, because greatness is not within you. Greatness is you. Nobody says hunger is within you, or beauty is within you. Yeah. We say, I'm hungry, or I'm beautiful. I want people to recognize I'm great. I am greatness. And so this lab helps you discover and uncover where your greatness is infused in your DNA. And it also helps you establish your personal brand. not business, but your brand. What is that invisible image that people get when they hear your name or when they think about you? What is that? And then we're going to trademark that in a sense so that everything you do, however you operate, that's what people will remember you by. And so that's kind of what it's coming out in the near future, a program, and it's a 10-week program. And by the end of the 10 weeks, you have your brand, you have your confidence, you know where you're supposed to be, and you're walking in your purpose, and you're able to achieve success by just being who you are, which is great.
Fantastic. How do people find you? What's the easiest way? What's your TikTok? How do people follow you on socials?
So everything as far as TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter is at the HR Plug.
Perfect.
On LinkedIn, it's also the HR Plug, but I'm more active on LaShawn Davis on LinkedIn. So if you go to linkedin.com/LaShawn Davis, you'll find me there. And then, I also have a website, www.thehrplug.com, where you can fill out a contact form and connect with me there as well. And my socials are also on there. I have a YouTube channel where I have a podcast that I publish a live show every week with advice for the workplace. And we talk about different things that are happening on Thursdays at 8. So you can go to the YouTube channel, check those out, subscribe there, and connect with me there. I'm trying to infiltrate the airwaves. So if it's out there, I'm probably there as the HR Plug somewhere. And I would welcome you guys to just connect with me so that I'm able to continue to delivering the things that you all need to experience success.
Wonderful. And is there any last words of wisdom or something you would want to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I just want to encourage everybody, and just number one, you're here, you're listening, and just recognize you're you, and there's no one else like you. There's only one you, and that means you're the only one who can do it as well as you can. So be you, be unapologetic about it. Don't ever apologize for who you are, because you were fearfully, beautifully, and wonderfully made. So own it and embrace that, and connect with me, because I will remind you of that every single day.
I might just have to take that snippet of this interview and put it on my phone to hear every day as a mantra.
Because the world will try to make you feel differently. They'll try to make you feel like, oh, you have flaws, or, oh, competition has been our biggest issue instead of collaboration. And we need more collaboration, but we're so competitive and stepping on the backs of others to rise. And we need to change that. And
we need to realize there's enough for everybody. Yeah, there is abundance out there. Everybody. Yeah.
It was so funny because I was driving with my husband the other day and we were going to Popeyes. And then there's this new chicken place that opened right next door to Popeyes. And I said to him, you see, that's 2 chicken places right next to each other. But people who want Popeyes will still go to Popeyes. And people who want this place will still go to this place, because they're different, because they each are their unique own brands and identity. If we would just function like that, we wouldn't be bothered or moved by people who we think are in our space, because they're not.
Wow. That's some amazing advice right there. Thank you, LaShawn.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me here.
Of course. And do you have a favorite quote, poem, mantra, verse, anything that you want to share as well?
I think what I always like to say is today is a new day. You can start fresh. You can wipe the slate clean. And if you mess up, tomorrow's a new day too.
That is very beautiful. LaShawn, thank you so much for coming on Your Brand Amplified. And to our audience, thank you for coming and listening to another great expert. As many of you are small businesses and entrepreneurs, you're all going to need HR advice at some point or other. Check out the HR Plug, introduce yourself to LaShawn, watch her podcast, go to her TikTok, because you'll get a wealth of information that will serve you. And I will be back again in a few days with another amazing expert. Until then, have a great week.
Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.